William Timmons, the person who is in charge of the transition team for John McCain if he becomes president. Both campaigns have to have a transition team in place in case they win. The person heading that transition team for John McCain is William Timmons. William Timmons worked with two guys, Samir Vincent and Tong Soon Park, who were convicted of being unregistered agents for the government of Saddam Hussein. And William Timmons gave them absolute help in doing so. He provided talking points. He provided access to politicians. In fact, in open court, these men, especially Samir Vincent, said on the record, having sworn an oath, hey, if it wasn't for William Timmons, we never would have been involved in this in the first place because we had no access to the American politicians, and Timmons provided that access, including to Bob Dole, to some of the top Republicans that they needed to meet with, okay? And Lawrence Eagleburger, by the way, among others. So Timmons opened the door, A. B, he showed them how to do it. He would write their letters for them, their talking points for them. And see, here's what's interesting. Timmons would get updates before and after meetings with Saddam Hussein's top officials, including Tariq Aziz. You remember Tariq Aziz? Used to represent Iraq at the United Nations, a very well-known top ally, former deputy vice president of Saddam Hussein himself. And Timmons would get briefed before and after the meetings with Tariq Aziz and some other Iraqi officials, top Iraqi officials. So he is intimately connected to the former government of Saddam Hussein. Does it get any worse than that? This isn't something that happened 40 years ago. We just invaded Iraq. In fact, John McCain told us, hey, you know what? The UN for the Food for Oil program, it was terrible. It was one of the reasons we needed to invade Iraq in the first place. That's interesting. Who came up with the UN for Food for Oil program? Oh, look at that, William Timmons. He's the guy who has bragged that he came up with the program in the first place. And here is a great little tidbit about politics, and you'll love this part. They structured the Food for Oil program so that Saddam Hussein could pick the oil companies he would work with. That allowed Saddam Hussein to do kickbacks and bribes from those companies, including U.S. companies, so that he could get rich. And he stole about $1.7 billion from that program using those bribes and kickbacks. Now, the man who brags about designing was Timmons. Now, why did he design it that way? And why was he working with Samir Vincent and Tong Soon Park, who both were convicted? Samir Vincent pled guilty, and Park was convicted and was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for being an unregistered agent of the Iraqi government under Saddam Hussein. So why did Timmons work with these people when he was a stalwart of the Republican Party, had worked with every administration, Republican administration, since Richard Nixon? You're going to be shocked at the reason why. It turns out he wanted the money. I wouldn't have figured that. Here's what they were going to do. They were going to get a contract for $45 million as part of this Food for Oil program that Saddam was running. And Saddam and Tariq Aziz basically let it be known to Park and Vincent, and then through them to Timmons, hey, you get us these sanctions removed. You lobby people to remove these sanctions, and we got $45 million for you in return, and we'll structure it through this program. So Timmons did lobby to get that program and the sanctions removed. Now, when you ask Timmons about it, he says, oh, no, I cared about the Iraqi people, and I wanted to make sure that that terrible and dastardly sanctions program was lifted so the poor people of Iraq wouldn't have to suffer. Really, so you just did it out of the goodness of your heart? Yeah, that's right. And you worked with Park and Vincent, and you organized all their talking points, and you introduced them to people like Bob Dole and other leaders in the Republican Party out of the goodness of your heart. Yeah, that's right. Come on! Who believes that? No one believes that. He wanted the $45 million if this deal went through. Of course! Come on. You'd have to be insanely naive to believe that. And, of course, as investigators, federal investigators, said he's either completely involved in this plot, or he is so unbelievably naive as to the point where you can't trust the guy that he understands anything. He understands that if you turn the knob and you do this, you open a door. Like, Of course, one thing leads to another. He would have to be devoid of all logic not to realize that his real incentive was that $45 million and not to help the Iraqi people, right? So here's a guy looking to try to get the sanctions removed from the Iraqi government led by Saddam Hussein, using the Food for Oil program he set up for his own benefit so he can get $45 million backtracked to him. And John McCain is on the record as saying, oh my, this program was so terrible that we had to invade Saddam Hussein because of it. Well, does that mean you have to invade your friend Timmons because of it? I don't know about that, but I don't even know what an invasion of Timmons would look like, except maybe for when the FBI busts into his office. But having said that, Timmons is up to his neck at Saddam Hussein. Is anyone that Obama is associated with anywhere near as culpable with a connection to a rogue state, what the Republicans have described as a terrorist state, a state that we invaded, as William Timmons and John McCain are? No way. Not even close. So anytime he brings up heirs, we're like, oh, well, you know, look, your top guy who's going to help you do the entire transition and show you how to become president, he's the guy that was showing Saddam Hussein how to steal money from the UN, from us, from everybody else, and trying to get some of his own. And his top associates are now in federal prison or convicted because they were unregistered agents of Saddam Hussein. Now, how do you think the press would deal with this if the shoe was on the other foot and it turned out Obama's top aide was connected to Saddam Hussein? Put a couple of thoughts behind it.